welcome to Lunch and Learn. Thank you for joining us. For those that haven't joined Lunch and Learn before, this is a monthly webinar. We used to do this in person. We used to get people along to a room just down the road from here, up to 70 people at one point, where we would welcome marketeers, business owners, salespeople, anyone that has some kind of play some kind of part in the marketing world. We'd pick a topic. Today's topic is planning and creating exceptional social content, and we discuss it. This is not a training session. It is for us to kind of give back essentially to the local and not so local business community. So my goal today is to give you something that you can take away and use within your business. If I haven't done that, I haven't done my job. So hopefully there's one thing you can take away. I'm going to do some intros first. So let me just get me PowerPoint all in order. Right, so I'm Dave. A lot of people on the call will know me, will have spoken to me in the past. I founded onefoursix almost 12 years ago. We've got a few companies within the group. We've got onefoursix, which is a digital marketing agency. Our focus is social, ads, web, and search, so SEO. So there are kind of four strings, main strings. We also do a lot of email marketing as well. Within the group, we've also got Northants Life, which a lot of people might have heard of, which is a local, if you're in Northamptonshire, it's a local online media outlet going through a lot of changes at the moment. So watch the space with that. There's Monty barking. And we've got a few other businesses within the group as well. Rebecca, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. So over to you.
Hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm working for onefoursix for nearly a year now. I do a little bit of everything in the business. I work with clients. I do our social, our marketing as well. I help organise the webinars.
Cool. Thank you very much. And just another point I'd like to chuck in. Now, this webinar is totally free today. We used to, when we did it in person, donate all of the profits to Cynthia Spencer. We do still like to support Cynthia Spencer. So after this meeting, you'll get a link directly through to our Just Given. If you wanted to donate what would usually be a ticket fee, you can do, whether it's £1, £20, £50, £2, whatever. But we're not checking up on this. We're not asking you to do it. It's totally free. But if you chose to support Cynthia Spencer, then that would be fantastic. So coming on to our topic. So I mentioned earlier when there were a few people in the room, this is the first webinar of two. We run Lunch and Learn every single month, but this month we decided to do a two-parter. And it's because there's so much content that we can get across, and it's too difficult to get across it all in 1 hour. So we're going to be talking about planning and creating exceptional social content. The second part to this will be the end of April, the 27th of April. You'll get the link through on email after this webinar today. And there's three key things I want to cover across both webinars. And the first thing is the theory, almost the strategic thinking when it comes to planning and creating your social content and making it exceptional. But the next two things are tips, the actual doing of it, what tips can we provide as an agency, having been there, done that, to help you do it better, and some of the tools we use as well. Now, we might touch on a few of those today, but today I really want to talk about the kind of strategic side of things, what you guys should be considering and thinking about when it comes to planning and creating social content. Now, it also, although we're separating it off into planning and creating social content, it's all kind of one. It's all intertwined. When we talk through the planning phase, we'll come on to one section, which is almost branched off when it comes to the creating side of things. I'll explain more when we get to it. But the first question I want to kind of address here is why most companies struggle with social. I think it's important to identify that. Now, we get two types, as a social agency, we get two types of business come to us, whether marketers, whether business directors. They come to us because they're either struggling with time. That's a big part. They haven't got the time to run their own socials. Now, I can't really address that today. Now, having a clear plan, having the inspiration to build your own social content will help with time. It will make it easier to do. It will make it quicker to build and run your own socials. But there's not much more I can do to address the time factor. So if you're in the room today thinking, I want to save time on social, yes, there's going to be some stuff, probably more so on the second seminar, second webinar, in terms of the tools. Yes, in terms of the planning, that's really going to help, but it's more so the second point, inspiration. We get a lot of people approach us that haven't got that inspiration. They haven't got the creative thinking. And that's what I want to help with today. And the planning phase and the stuff we talk about in terms of creating social content will really help with that. Now, I know a lot of businesses on this webinar today, and I know you guys do it very well. So like I say, if there's one or two things that we can give you today that you take away to make your socials even better, to help people engage with you more, then that's my job done, because no one's perfect. And we fit into this as well, because we're always finding ways of trying to do our socials better as well. So they're the two key reasons why most companies struggle with social: time and inspiration, or creativity. And hopefully we'll address both, but more so the creativity side of things today. So the first thing I want to address is planning. And I wanted to break it up with this funky graphic, but it doesn't mean a lot. So let's move on quickly. So Bex, this is something Bex put to me whilst we were planning this. Why does good planning make for better socials? Now, in my experience, whenever we onboard clients, and whenever we speak to other businesses locally, other marketeers locally, whether they're clients or not, one of the consistent things we see is there is very little planning around socials. People just tend to do it. Now, there's always going to be an element of planning, because you've got to sit down and you've got to produce the content. You've got to think about what content's going out. So there's always going to be an element of it. But this is where we use that term good planning. And why does good planning make for better socials? Bex, I'm going to let you answer this, because you answer this really well.
Basically, when you're planning ahead, it gives you more time to put more effort into your social creation. So when you're planning in advance, the quality output is going to be better. So you're putting more into the input, basically. You're also planning ahead for how you're going to create the socials. So if you know when something's going to happen a few weeks or a few months down the line, you've got way more time to invest in getting the equipment ready, getting the right people in the right place, that kind of project management almost, to get the social content that you want.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think you could use the analogy of driving to Scotland. I used to use this quite a lot. If you don't plan your journey, it's going to take you about 2 days to get up there. If you plan your journey, it'll take 6 hours. So it saves time. It makes what you're doing more effective. And linking it back to social, again, it will save time. It will help you create better content. And it will make your content more effective when it's going out there. So good planning does make for better socials, absolutely.
Sorry, I'll just get in here, just that it gives you enough time. The other things we're going to be talking about, that we're going to go on to next, it gives you enough time to consider those as well and take those into account.
Absolutely, yeah. And there's a few points we're going to make shortly and kind of delve into. We're going to talk about some of the clients we work with and some case studies against those kind of points. And these kind of points we're going to be making, if you use them, I guarantee you it will make for better socials. It will make for more engagement, more reach, and the like. So let's move on. So first of all, identify your audience and set your goals. Now, this is, I mean, people look at this and think, oh God, yeah, I'll do it. And then they don't go through it and do it. They're just cracking with their socials anyway. I want to stress how important it is to spend even a minute identifying who your audience is and setting your goals. Okay. So first of all, what are your goals? Have a think about it. Have a think about what your goals are. Have a think about who you're targeting. Because if you don't have a goal, if you don't set yourself a task, something to aim for, then your socials, it's just not going to work as well. And I've got a few examples shortly. If you don't identify your audience, you're not going to know where to post, what is working well, what isn't working well. So it's absolutely crucial to set your goals and identify your audience. Now, I'm going to link it through to a client we're working with. We do a lot of work with a utility company. They go in and lay the groundworks for various utilities on big estates. When they approached us just over a year ago, they had a very clear goal. We helped them almost define that. Their goal was not to bring in clients, and bear in mind, every company is different. So this is a really good example. It shows how companies are a little bit different. Their goal was not to bring in clients, but it was to show people why it was good to work there. And the reason they were doing that is they work in quite a niche. And their challenge as a business is not necessarily getting business through, although putting socials out there and generating social content is going to help with that. But it's not necessarily bringing the business in. That's not what they struggle with. It is bringing good quality staff into the business, because their industry is very niche and it's very competitive. So their goal was to showcase a business as a great place to work. It was as simple as that. So from that, we were able to identify their audience. Well, their audience is future employees. Now, yes, you could say that it's showcasing the business to other potential buyers in the future, but that wasn't part of the aim at the time. The aim, the goal, was to showcase the business as being a great place to work for. So then that immediately makes us think, well, this is all about LinkedIn. So all of a sudden we've eliminated 2, 3, 4 different platforms. And when we sat there speaking about this, they were very keen at the time to utilize a number of different platforms. And we actually honed them in, which reduced costs for them, to be fair. It reduced cost, it reduced effort. It meant that we could produce better quality content for that platform only and for that audience only. Because it's far more difficult to target people within a certain niche on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, especially this particular niche. This was made for LinkedIn. Off the back of that, we were then able to define our content, and I'll come on to the content that we were able to define for them shortly at another point. Now, another one of our clients, and I'm talking about case studies today because it will hopefully help you think about why these goals, identifying these goals and identifying your target audience is absolutely crucial. And in this particular instance, we continue to work on behalf of a home improvement company, and they build these amazing garden rooms that are used for offices, outdoor gyms, just man caves, woman caves. When we started working with them, we set the goal of they just want more leads. Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting more leads from your marketing or from social. Now, we also identify that although social is a good platform to showcase this business because they're a very visual business, and in fact, we get most of their leads off social, we also identify the fact that we need to go a step further and utilize social ads. So we actually set up Facebook ads, and we set them up in such a way that it would generate leads. But we also realized that those leads, and it generated a lot of leads actually, over a short period of time, it generated about 250 leads. But we also realized those leads needed nurturing, because a garden room in your garden, it's a 10 to 25 grand project. It's not something you decide on a whim. So those leads needed nurturing. So what we did is we hooked them up. We changed the message for starters. The message was around downloading a brochure. So it's quite soft. It wasn't a sales message. And then we nurtured those people over the course of the next month or two with educational content, inspirational content, showcasing those garden rooms to them. So we kind of changed our tack there. Yes, we use social to showcase the garden rooms, but we actually use social ads, and we incorporated other elements of marketing. So I guess when you identify your audience, when you set your goals—
Can I step in here just quickly?
2 seconds. When you identify your audience and when you set your goals, it also helps you identify other parts of marketing that you can utilize to help nurture those leads over time. Rebecca.
Yeah, so with this one in particular, we were also looking at the audience. They're predominantly on Facebook, so we knew what the kind of the demographics, we knew the age range, and the kind of like life journey that these people would be in. So they would have the money to be investing in a project like this, and so they are mostly going to be found on Facebook, which meant that then we weren't putting money into social ads across platforms that weren't going to pull that in, if that makes sense. So with this, we identified most of these people aren't necessarily going to be on Twitter. So we're not putting social ads out on Twitter. We're just doing it on Facebook and then bringing them in that way. So knowing the details about the audience and where they're spending their time, which happens to be Facebook, meant that we could tailor the content to that age range, that demographic, and the social adverts, which meant that we were only putting a budget behind things that we knew were going to work with the people that we were aiming it to.
Thanks, Bex. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely spot on. I'm going to come on to the kind of goals and the audience thing throughout. I'm going to refer back to it on a few different instances, but I'm going to move on quickly. So the next thing, when it comes to planning your socials, we get the very first thing I say to people when they say, I don't know what to post. I haven't got that kind of level of creativity. I say, check out what your competitors are doing. So the next thing you should be doing is auditing your socials. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're on this call today and you have all the creativity under the sun and you think you're running your socials on a really high level, and it might be the case. Still audit your socials. Find out what has worked for you in the past and find out what has worked for your competitors in the past. Now, if we go back to what's worked for you in the past, using the analytical tools on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn one isn't as good, or maybe some third-party analytical tools, you can look back at some of the specific content, some of the specific types of content, whether it be, categories, topics, and some of the specific media, so whether it's video, photo, graphics, that have worked best in the past. Now, I'm going to cite an example here. So I mentioned earlier that within our group, we have Northampton Life, which is a local media outlet. As I said, it's going to be changing quite a bit over the next few months if you are local to Northamptonshire, so keep an eye open for that. But one of the things we're doing at the moment is we're auditing our socials. We're auditing everything about the business in order to take it on another step and transform it into something a little bit different, which I might talk about on future webinars. And one of the things we noticed on Instagram, which is almost a given, and you might see it there and think, well, we know that, it's public knowledge. But we noticed that we get a phenomenal amount of reach and engagement when we send out video content. That drops by probably tenfold if we send out image-based content. Now, there's two reasons for this. First of all, the platforms are prioritizing video, especially the likes of Instagram. And second of all, people are liking short form video more. And we've only found that out by auditing our socials. Now, there was an element of, it's almost a bad example because we knew Instagram likes reels and prioritizes reels and that sort of things over photos. But we were also able to delve into the types of content that worked. So, for example, through auditing our social, we now know that our best performing post for Northampton Life last month, or this month just gone, was a post about, it was specific to Easter. It was around a child activity. So if anyone's been over to Wilton Mill, in fact, if anyone's got kids, it's a great activity. Wilton Mill, they've got this thing called Crazy Bugs. They're these kids off-roader things where you take up this track. It's brilliant. It's a half-an-hour session that you can do over at Wilton Mill. So we did a promo for it on Northampton Life. It was an unpaid promo, so it came across quite genuine. It was video content, so again, really good content for the platform, and it was our highest performing post. And we believe it's down to the fact that, first of all, our audience is 70% female. Now, it's also a majority of it is 30 plus. Now, 70% female, 30 plus. We know that within that audience, we're going to have a lot of mothers. That's just fact. We will have some that aren't mothers, some that are maybe grandparents, but we will have, because it's majority female, over 30, we will have a lot of mothers in there, and they will have kids of a certain age range because it kind of fits within our target audience. So it fitted our target audience. The video content fit the platform, and it fit the almost the time of the year, the fact that it was coming up to Easter. People were starting to think about that. So because we audited our socials, we were able to identify the fact that it was only really relevant content that generated that high engagement rate, and it was relevant on a number of different levels. And we knew that because we audited our socials. So that's why it's really important to have a look at, I talk about looking at your competitors a lot, but there's only so much you can do around your competitors. Audit your own socials as well. Have a look back at what has worked in the past. It might actually surprise you, because there's so many things that we send out that we think that's going to do really well, and it doesn't. There's so many things that we kind of do on a whim, and it does amazing. Rebecca, you weren't here at the time, but back in right at the very start of COVID, I sent out a post. It took me 2 minutes to write on the Northampton Live feed. It was, and this kind of comes back to sometimes posts, the kind of posts that you think are going to do well, don't do well, and vice versa. This fits right in this category. So I put out a post, something along the lines of, when all this is over, aka COVID, let's all go on a massive bender to support our pubs. And it was that simple. It was utilizing the text field on Facebook. It was only sent out on Facebook. And within a week, it generated, I think it was about 3 million impressions across the country. And later that week, I got a notification from Facebook saying I needed to enforce two-factor authentication, which wasn't enforced at the time. It is now for a lot of people, because I was known as a influencer. Because I've sent out a post that reached about 3 million people. And it was that kind of post that I didn't expect to do well, that did absolutely unbelievably well. I think we had 100,000 likes on it or something stupid. It was insane. And again, through auditing our, I mean, that one was obvious, but through auditing our socials, we found out that it was that off-the-cuff stuff, a little bit more personal, that actually worked for us, and we've been able to feed that into future socials. So this all kind of comes into the planning phase. By auditing your socials, by auditing your competitor socials, you can find out what has and hasn't worked in the past. You can feed that straight back into the creation of your social content in the planning phase. Beck, so we got a question.
Yes, so Tracy's asked, I have answered a bit, I've written down some stuff, but she asked about the gardening rooms example and how did we know that the audience were on Facebook? What do we use social listening or other tools? So I have explained that a lot of the information we had came from our clients' database and like the people they know that they're aiming for, and then we cross-reference that with the kinds of which social media demographics are using which social platform. So we knew that Facebook, predominantly a large number of over 40s use Facebook much more than they use any other platform. And that's one of the reasons. So that's why we went for Facebook.
Yeah, brilliant. And also through the ad system, we can further target people over the age of 40, which really helps. What I will also say is Facebook and Instagram especially, as opposed to the likes of Twitter, LinkedIn wasn't really relevant at the time. They're more visual. So yes, you're targeting a certain age range, but also you're targeting the platform that can help you deliver a very visual and inspirational message, which in this instance was garden rooms. So the platform was ideal for it as well. And you know what, we're not always right. We don't get the platform right. We don't get the audience right all the time. But this is why we test and measure. This is why we stop things. We start up other platforms. We try different messages. Marketing is all about testing and measuring. We don't have all the answers. Other people. But yeah, great question, Tracy. Thank you very much. So moving on from auditing your socials, and we come on to categorizing content and deciding on different kind of media formats as well. Now, I do have a couple of examples with regards to this. It all kind of links into the two previous points I've made. But at this stage, when it comes to planning, it's really, really important to categorize the content that you're looking to put out. And this is almost where you create topics, and it's based on your aims. It's based on your target audience. It's based on what you know works because you've audited your socials. And then off the back of all that information, you can go through and you can categorize your content and then decide on the media formats that you're going to use moving forward. So as an example, I'll go back to this utilities company. Because we knew their aim was to target new employees and make it look as though it was a great place to work, that was their core aim. We knew that the categories we wanted to send out was around team-based activities, showing that it's a really good place to work. So it was photos and video showing that it's a really good place to work, happy employees. It was about graphics that would show the benefits of working at this particular utilities company. And it was also about case studies. We decided to use cases. We decided to get out on site to showcase the kind of projects these people would be working on. So it's not just about being a great place to work. The actual work, the work you're working on, the projects you're involved in are really good as well and really inspiring. So off the back of those kind of first 2 points, we were able to easily categorize what they were doing. Now, the kind of categories that you could look at, or the kind of topics you could look at, if I was to reel them off, we will come on to this further on our second webinar, could be things like case studies, could be things like events, educational pieces. It could be repurposing old content, and I'll come on to that later as well. Now, I want to cite the example of us, of 146, because as with you guys, we market ourselves. Now, we've always focused, we're not a massive agency. We've got a small team here of around about 6 to 8 people. We've always suffered in the past of not being able to market ourselves as well as what we do with our customers. And that's not me putting ourselves down. That's just me being realistic. As with other people in different industries, you focus on your clients as opposed to yourself. And this year we decided, right, we're really going to focus on ourselves. We're really going to focus on pushing our own marketing forward. We thought, well, what's our aims? Well, our aim is to not necessarily sell. Yes, that's the ultimate kind of overarching aim, is to sell more, is to generate more profit. That's the aim of any business. But for us, it was about developing more relationships with marketeers and with business directors. That was our core aim. So we thought, well, how can we do this? Well, we've got this fantastic webinar called Lunch and Learn that runs every single month. Why don't we focus on that? Because that's where our target audience kind of ends up. We know they love it. You know, we get anywhere between 20, 30 people on a call each time around. In person, we used to get 70 odd. So why don't we utilize that? So our aim was to develop better relationships with people like yourself. How we do it was centralized around Lunch and Learn. And then when it comes to the categorizing of the content, we've then decided to make sure that everything we do from a content perspective is around Lunch and Learn. So we will hold Lunch and Learn today, for example, and for a month moving forwards, our content will generally be around educational content that has appeared on Lunch and Learn. It might be something a little bit different as well, but it acts as a bit of a reminder to you guys. And it also acts as kind of added value content to people who haven't necessarily been on the course. So we wanted to give back. We wanted to make everything we do educational. We also feed in case studies throughout the month because they're educational as well. And I fed in case studies today because it helps demonstrate our point on certain matters. So our aim was to take Lunch and Learn and use that as almost the center of what we do. And off the back of that, we've got other things. Bex is going and connecting with all you guys on LinkedIn, and I will be doing the same. We've also got our email marketing system that churns away good content and reminds you guys of events and reminds you guys to attend Lunch and Learn. I hope that's not too much, by the way. We've tried to keep a happy medium on it not being honest, having not too many emails. But what we've been able to do from that initial idea is we've been able to formulate our entire marketing strategy. And more importantly, on this note, categorize our content. We know exactly what content we want to push out. Once you know that, and by the way, that categorization of content, when I said earlier that we've got a bit of an offshoot into the creation side of things, that's it. You know, that's where I can say to you guys, well, categorize your content, you know, do educational stuff, do case studies. You still need to come up with the content. And that's kind of our offshoot, which we'll come on to shortly. But once you've got all that content put together, use a scheduler. We use schedulers. We use something called Sked Social, which is okay, does what we need it to do with a few battles along the way. I think most schedulers do have their pros and cons. Next month, we will talk about some of the scheduling tools you could use. We'll go into kind of pros and cons of each. We've used 4 or 5 over the years. We're doing some research on some others as well. So we'll approach that with some cool tools. But we use something called Sked, which is quite Instagram focused. But I would encourage you guys to use a social scheduler of some form, whether it's a third-party tool or whether it's direct on the platforms. The platforms, they all have scheduling facilities now. So if you're looking at maybe 1 or 2 different platforms, maybe just use the actual social platform itself to schedule stuff. If you're using 3 or 4 different platforms, then this is where a social, kind of a third-party social scheduler will work even better, because it will allow you to kind of duplicate and repurpose the same content or make tweaks to certain content across different platforms. But the reason why it's really important to use a scheduler is it helps you plan out that content. And if you're just doing it on a whim every single day, you're going to forget. You're not going to sit down and plan stuff. It's not going to be content that necessarily feeds into your business goals. It's not going to be content that appeals to your audience, that works because you know it works, because you've audited your socials. It's not necessarily going to be content that's even well categorized. You might go out and sell kind of day in, day out, and you certainly don't want to be doing that. You want to try and add value to your audience. And that's why we say use a social scheduler.
Can I add something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to give some specific examples, because when you're looking at planning ahead with content, I've come from a situation where the idea of planning so far ahead and looking at, especially if you're the only person doing marketing, you're in a small business, you're the only one doing it, it can seem pretty overwhelming. So the content categorizing and using the scheduler working together can really help. It just breaks it into smaller chunks. It takes your everything that you're thinking about with marketing and all of your socials, and it breaks it down into, like, let's say you want to do 1 blog a month, or someone is writing 1 blog a month and you want to post about it. Then think about categorizing that into blogs. And then you think 1 blog a month. And then you look at your social scheduler, and each month you choose a day, every 3rd Wednesday of the month, and you put blog goes in there. And you just do that for the rest of the year or the next 6 months or 3 months. That's it's kind of like a weight off your chest. And you know, okay, well, every Wednesday, or every 3rd Wednesday of each month, it is going to that's going to be the blog. So I know that I need to get it sorted by then. And that's what's going to happen each time. And so when you use these two, knowing that you're definitely going to have a silly video, a silly TikTok, or your staff birthdays, if posting about staff birthdays is a big thing in your company, put that in your schedule. You know everyone's birthdays are then, and then that gives you more time to get a photo for their birthday or write a message, things like that, rather than coming in on the day and going, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday today. Are they here? I need to take a photo of them. And then you realize they've put the day off of their birthday. And so it helps narrow things down into bite-sized chunks, and it takes a bit of the weight off your mind when you use those two things in tandem with each other.
Cool, thank you, and thanks Tracy for the input there as well. I'm going to move on to the final point on planning. We've got a question. Let's try and approach that first. With TikToks and Reels, how do you keep on trend, still schedule in advance? That is
a very good question.
So that's a real challenging one. It's first of all, it's unlikely with, let's say, TikToks that you're going to create a trend, but you never know. So it's always good to experiment with things and try different music. It's more so just being adaptable, I would say. There are certain things that you can't necessarily plan in. This will formulate probably 90-95% of your socials, but it's really important to ensure that there's gaps there to just react to things.
Yeah.
So if, and I'm saying a big if, because it's not going to be the case for every business, if working with trends is your thing, if it benefits your business, you have to plan that in, to set aside some time each month to keep abreast of what the trends are. Can
I
then you can schedule them in like a day later, but that needs to be a bit more reactionary.
Yeah, or the other thing you can do, I mean, apart from if you're getting everything else done, you should have time, but there's things like knowing who you can go to help you get the trend filmed. So you see a trend, you see something come up on TikTok and you think that would be perfect for my office. If you then go in, let's say you're looking at it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and half the team have already gone home, then it's going to be a bit harder for you. So plan looking at stuff like that earlier in the day. And also knowing who you can go to, who are the 2 colleagues who would definitely do that dance that you can go to and say, can you drop everything? let's do this now. If you know who they are in advance and they're happy to join in, they're going to be more prepared, and you're not going to have to like scramble around to find someone to help you out with that. So there is always going to be things that you react to. So planning ahead is almost like you're getting everything else done so you have the time to do it. But there are things you can do, just like knowing who you can go to for help, what kind of trends and things that you actually can do. If you see a trend, you really want to jump on it and you think, actually, that's impossible, what can you do that's similar instead? And making time for, we want to release one TikTok every month, and not necessarily saying which one it is, but knowing that you're going to do that gives you enough time to find a trend that you work with. And sometimes trends go on for a lot longer than you realize. They're still gaining traction. Or you might only come across one weeks after it's already come out. So don't worry too much about scheduling a trend that you see that you really want to jump on straight away. You won't necessarily be able to do that, and a lot of tools don't let you schedule on TikTok anyway. But having a few things in plan, like a plan basically for when you want to do that, will help and mean you can get them out quickly.
Yeah, thanks, Bex. Right, final point on this, on the planning section, is around creating an engagement plan. Now, everything we've spoken about previously, or certainly when it comes to scheduling in content, it's 50–60% of social. Don't stop there. It's really, really important to think about, how are people engaging? How do you get people engaging? You know, that will feed into the types of content you push out there. Can you get users creating content for you, as an example, almost becoming advocates of the business? This is great in things like the hair industry. I know Cherie's on the call. There's a great hair salon down in Abington, Lava Boot Hairdressing, and that's a great. That's the kind of industry where you can get users, customers creating content on your behalf because they want to showcase their hair. Me, maybe not so much, but other people want to showcase their hair on socials and then tag you in. Is there a way you can do that? Now, I've talked on past webinars about interaction, not just engagement. So when I say create an engagement plan, I mean they kind of say the same thing, but when I talk about creating interaction rather than just engagement, for me, interaction goes a step further. So yes, you have to think about, how are you going to create social content that generates engagement? But you also need to think about, how are you going to engage back with them? And to me, that's stepping into the world of you're interacting with them. So think about that. It might be a case of ensuring that everyone that comments on an engaging post, you write back to them, you comment back to every single person. And then within that plan, it might be a case of you either close that comment off with a laughy face or thanks for your feedback or whatever it might be, or you try and continue that conversation. Because the more conversation you get off any social platform, the more it will be seen. That's how the algorithms work. It might be a case of you want to more directly engage with other businesses or other people. You can do that quite easily on the likes of Instagram. Or Facebook or LinkedIn. LinkedIn's probably more on a personal level, but you might want to put into the plan that you set aside so much time to target. This is great when you know your target audience, to target your target audience with direct comments, engagement, likes, shares, you know, support them as well as encouraging them to support you. You might want to engage on certain Facebook groups. You might want to engage with certain hashtags on Instagram. When you think about what your engagement plan is, you can kind of break it down to so many different areas. And by doing, you know, certain things that relate to your business, it is going to drive more engagement on your stuff, and it's going to get you seen more. It's going to make your future content more successful. You know, it's all about building relationships. And you shouldn't just be putting stuff out there. Similar to us in Lunch and Learn, we're not just putting stuff out there, we're engaging beyond Lunch and Learn on various different platforms. You shouldn't just be putting it out there, you should be engaging back to people, or you should be engaging direct to people. Because if, let's say, we engage with the Royal and Derngate Instagram feed, for example, other people are going to see that. Other people might think, I didn't know about Northamp's Life or 146, and they're going to start to engage and follow our stuff. And that's when that's when an engagement plan really starts to work. So think about how you can interact, engage with people, as well as just putting content out there. Now, we don't usually do this, and this is not a sales spiel, because I don't like to sell. It's all about building relationships for us. But we are going to be giving something back, even more so than us just doing lunch and learn this time around. We have decided internally on every lunch and learn, we want to give something back to a select number of people. And I say select number of people because we've only got so many hours in the day, so we don't want to absolutely bombard our team here. We are willing to put together a 7-day social plan with a certain level of content. We won't do visuals, but we will make recommendations on visuals, photos, videos to 5 businesses, 5 people who are on the webinar today. It will only be today. Anything we get there on after today, we won't do. So if you want, it's totally free. If you want to be one of those 5 and you want a 7-day social plan, and the worst case scenario, it will help you decide on future content. You might even be able to use the content. Then Rebecca's going to put the link on how you can claim this in the chat. So I'll leave Rebecca to do that for a second. As I said, it will only be today, and we've only got 5 available because we can't spare the time beyond 5. In fact, 5 is a push for us. It will involve us just having a discovery call just to find out what your aims are, because that's important. And then we'll go away and do our thing, and we'll provide it back to you on an email. And then you don't even have to talk to us again. But if you want that, please click on the link that Rebecca's putting in now, and I don't think she can find it.
No, I've got it. I just was going to wait until you finished talking before I posted it. I'll also send it out in the email at the end of the session. So if you rather than scrambling away, but we don't know how popular this is going to be, so
we've no idea. We've never done it before.
That's the link.
Again, it's our way of giving back. And like I said, we'll do the first 5 that come in. So if you want to do it quickly, because we'll only do the first 5, and we might reserve the next one for next month. Right, anyway, over to creating content. So this is the kind of offshoot from the whole categorization side of things. It's coming on to the, well, what do I physically put? What do I write? What do I include in terms of photo, video? Now, we're going to come on to this a lot. Like the first webinar has been a lot around the planning side of things. We're going to touch on the creative. And next month, we're going to talk about some great tools, some great tips to help you create better creatives. But we are gonna kind of delve into it now as well, and just give you a few kind of insights into some of the things you can do to create better content. And this has almost been addressed early on. We talked about auditing socials, but I cannot stress enough how much information, how much creativity, how much inspiration you will get from just doing your research. Have a look at where your competitors lie. Have a look at some of the stuff you've done in the past. But in this instance, if you're creating content that you haven't created before and you're lacking creativity, have a look at your competitors. That's whenever we onboard any social client, we did this with Wilton Mill. We've been working with Wilton Mill for 2 years now. And we create great content there, and it's brilliant because we get to go out on track and take the cars around and everything. But the very first thing we did was we looked at their competitors, and we looked at what they were doing and whether they did things well, and what they didn't do that was very well. There were some things they were actually doing well that the management team over at Wilton Mill didn't want us to do because they felt it was not in keeping with their brand. It was a little bit tacky. So although we'd identified it as doing well, we decided we weren't going to use it. So by doing our research, we identified so much content, so many ideas that we could use. And it's not a case of copying. It's never a case of copying, but it's a case of taking inspiration from stuff that other people have done and utilizing it in your own way. And by doing that, you can find out what works. Again, similar to auditing your own socials, audit your competitors. If you want to look at, if you want other forms of inspiration, look at what other businesses do that aren't your competitors. Because yeah, they might be in a totally different industry, but they might spark off some ideas that you could use. So the very first thing I do is I say to people, go and have a look at your competitors. If they're struggling for inspiration, look at your competitors. If you're struggling for inspiration around social ads, use the Facebook ad library. Just Google it. It comes up with what your competitors are doing in terms of ads. It'll give you inspiration. Google stuff. AI. I'm going to come onto AI in a short while. It's kind of our last point. But utilize AI if you haven't already. I suspect a lot of people haven't. But research is absolutely crucial. I'm not going to dwell on this one, but brainstorm and involve your team. Every Monday morning, we sit down at this, you might see the dog in the background now. No, he's eaten. We sit down at our boardroom table just over there as a team, and we brainstorm. We involve the team. Bekah takes the lead, but she then sits down with Tom afterwards, and she talks about some of the stuff that we're going to be doing across socials, and we're going to be doing on Lunch and Learn, and going to be going out on email. Involve people. Now, I think it was Elon Musk that, I'm not a massive fan of Elon Musk, by the way, but I take snippets from different people. I think it was Elon Musk that mentioned that it's really important to involve a team, but don't make the focus group too large, because then you get too many ideas and it can be overwhelming. You get too many opinions. You get opinions about opinions. Keep your focus group small, but involve other people. Now, depending on the type of business that you operate, that you work within, you may be the sole marketeer, in which case you're going to think, well, I haven't got a marketing team. Involve the senior management team. Get them involved in marketing. Involve other aspects of the business. So you're a marketeer for a reason, or you do your specific job for a reason. Other people within the business do their jobs for a reason. So, for example, if we look at a solicitor, a legal firm, there's going to be so many different types of job within a legal firm. You've got family, you've got probate, you've got business, dispute resolution. You've got loads of different elements that each of those individual people they'll know nothing about the other element because they're specialists in their field. You've then got a marketeer who's specialist in their field, specialist in marketing the business. How could you market their sides of the business? They are the business. How can you market them without involving them and knowing enough about them? Now, this is a challenge we come across quite a lot, especially when it comes to involving a team in, let's say, LinkedIn and getting them out on LinkedIn. It's a massive challenge, and we've seen it across a couple of customers that we've onboarded in the past. I would just say do it. The main pitfall we've had in the past is certainly in terms of getting people to share stuff on LinkedIn, which is slightly different to this, but it's certainly involving them, is, oh, well, they might go and get poached. They'll get poached anyway. Like, just get them involved, get them to do stuff. And it creates a bigger buy-in, it creates bigger ideas. And that's where your creation is going to come from. Sometimes as a marketeer, it's not about you necessarily coming up with the ideas, it's about you implementing the ideas. So get your creativity from somewhere else if you're struggling with that. Focus on creating high quality content. Now, this is almost a given, and I feel a bit stupid saying this, including this, but excuse me. So many businesses share substandard content just for the sake of sharing content. We all do it. We've done it. We've done it for clients. You know, even when we're pushing for high quality content, sometimes we send stuff out. We've got a client, I won't name who, they're not local. We've got a client who encourage us to send out substandard content because they like it. It's the kind of thing they like. We're like, oh, we're constantly battling. Focus on creating high quality content. And this comes in many different forms. It comes in the media. So creating really visual content, whether it's photo or video. If you're a visual business, make sure it's top notch. It comes through the messaging. Make sure it's maybe, you know, if you've done your research, you know, if you've audited your social, you know what works. If shorter form content in terms of wording or video even works better, if you focus on creating that. With regards to some of our clients that operate on LinkedIn, the focus is about creating quality, but less of it. Quality content, but less of it. Because we know that we'll just be filling the gaps with substandard content. What's the point? What's the point in them paying for it? So creating high quality content, yes, it's almost a given, but so many people don't do it. Create less of it and make sure it's high quality. Create taggable content, create visually engaging content, create content that just gets engaged. Now, I did have a case study, but I can't remember what it was, so I'm going to move on. You get involved in, when you get into the flow of doing Lunch and Learn, you forget about certain things. So it's, so yeah, apologies. If it comes back to me, I'll let you know. Little tip, don't forget about video and make sure you prioritize authentic content. Now, this is absolutely key. This is quite difficult in professional services. I think we've got a couple of professional services in the room, maybe one or two. First of all, don't forget about video. Regardless of what I mentioned earlier about the work we do in Northampton Life and the fact that our reels are doing so much better than our images, That's, that was partly down to the fact that we planned some really good content, but the social platforms are prioritizing video. So don't forget about video. And you can potentially use many different images and almost build a video off the back of that, but don't forget about video. Try and think about ways you can include it. But also prioritize authentic content. Now, especially in professional services, it's really difficult to include content that is your own because it's people in an office. It's not very exciting. You have to start thinking outside the box. You have to involve the team more, have a look at your competitors, see what they're doing, but try and prioritize authentic content because stock imagery only goes so far. And I think I read a stat, I can't remember where it was from, so I'm not going to cite it, but there was a stat that basically said authentic content, so imagery that businesses create on average, create 35% more reach than content that is stock-based. That's a third more reach that you're going to generate on one post alone. So try and prioritize authentic content. And next month, we will talk about how you can potentially do that. And repurpose or reuse evergreen content. I mentioned this earlier. If you're struggling for inspiration, just remember you've got content, probably in many different forms, whether it's social content, blog content, web content in other forms that you've used before that you could quite easily repurpose. If you go back and audit your socials and see what has worked, maybe even use that content just in a slightly different way, maybe with a video rather than an image. But repurpose and reuse evergreen content because you will have produced a lot of content that's still relevant and you've probably just left and just forgotten about. The final thing I want to come on to today, we will hopefully finish on time, is where does AI fit into all this? Now, we've all heard about AI a few years ago. It was the up and coming thing. It's now all hit us with ChatGPT and other platforms, Jasper. We've tried a few. I've personally done a lot of research on this over the last few weeks as to how it might impact marketing, and it is going to vastly impact marketing. So where does AI fit into this? Well, my personal opinion at the moment is maybe do a bit of research on it. It is great for ideas. Great for ideas. Content, if I'm being brutally honest, is actually good for content as well. And we've been testing and measuring the kind of content that it comes up with. We've been using a tool called Jasper to do that. Now, the challenge with content at the moment is Google has ways of identifying whether stuff is AI generated. So I would always say use AI tools to help you generate ideas. Don't necessarily get it to do the job for you. We're not doing that as an agency, but we are using it as a tool to aid us in some of our creativity, to create better ideas. And Rebecca, just quickly, you had we've got about a minute left, but you had an example, didn't you?
Yeah, so the way I plan my content out, after I've categorized it and put it in my schedule and everything, that's how I work, is very visual. And I'm going through and I've hit a bit of a wall when it comes to how to introduce something. I want to talk about a blog, and I know that a message I kind of want to get across, but I'm not sure. And it does happen, but rather than taking a break and coming back, I put in what I wanted to try and say into ChatGPT, and I asked it to come up with 3 ways of introducing this topic, and it came up with 3 ways of introducing the topic, the title of the blog, and they were all pretty good. But what it did was I saw one and I thought, well, that would really work with the end of that one, and I rewrote 1 or 2 of them, put them together, tailoring it to the client. So I changed 1 word because it was a bit Americanized, and I changed one of the hashtags it gave me, and because that didn't suit the industry. But I used that, basically I already knew what I wanted to talk about. I was just struggling a little bit, so I used AI to give me some ideas, and it clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. I'll use a bit of that and a bit of that, I'll put them together, I'll tailor it to the client, and there it was done. So that's what we mean when we say, like, Google won't penalize that. If Google was reading that as an update, it wouldn't go, that was written by AI, because it hasn't been. but I did use AI to help me put that sentence or two together and come up with that social post.
I think
and it
it's,
really, really works when you use it like that.
yeah, thanks, Bex. Great example. I think it's important to acknowledge where our AI may be going. It's worth doing some research on it. Be careful how you use it, and I would certainly only use it for ideas, because maybe not so much on social, but certainly online, on web, you will probably find it does more harm than
Very
good.
risky.
Very risky. But right, we've reached the end, and guys, if you can just stick around for just 10 more seconds, and we'll let you go. This was part 1 of planning and creating exceptional social content. 27th of April, we are going to be looking at part 2. We're going to be taking you through far more practical kind of tips now that we've got over kind of some of the strategy stuff. More so about creating content, some great tools that we use. To give us a sec. I don't expect you to go and buy one of these, but even stuff like this that we use, we'll talk about various tools, hardware, software, all this kind of jazz that you can use. So make sure you book on. And as I said, we've got that offer running today only. So first 5 we'll bring on board, and it's a non-salesy thing. You'll get the information. That's about it. Obviously, if you want to work with us in the future, brilliant. Just reach out. But hopefully see you on the next Lunch and Learn, guys. And thank you very much for attending.